Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so I am here with a brand new series on the channel, and seeing as it is Gemini season, we're going to be looking at Mercury within the signs as well as looking at the third house ruler in order to explain the zodiac signs as students. So with that in mind, in today's video we're going to be discussing the Gemini student. Now, if you have any of your personal planets within the sign of Gemini, then this video might resonate, but it is more specifically directed towards those of you who have your Mercury within the sign of Gemini, as well as Gemini ruling your third house. So the way we're going to be really constructing this series is that I'm going to be touching on 3 subjects that each of the signs would learn at school, and how that really filters in with that sign overall and how that sign might perform within that subject. Now, if you are not at school anymore, still watch this video because it can still apply to you, because it's these same subjects that can be used within your everyday life as well. Now, I want to put this quick disclaimer here, and that is that if you have Mercury retrograde, if you have Mercury intercepted, if you have Gemini intercepted, or if you have any aspects towards your Mercury placement, then the dialogue may change quite a bit. But before we do get started, if you would like to know more information all about Gemini through the houses, if you want to know more information about Mercury within the houses, the Mercury signs, and the third house within astrology, then I have created a Gemini season / Gemini archetype ebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a link to that ebook in the description box below so that you can pick up your copy today. So with all of those introductions out of the way, Mercury in Gemini / Gemini ruling the third house, let's do this. Okay Gemini, so the first subject that I chose for you is maths, because when it comes to learning maths, you might be very good at performing calculations, estimations and approximations within your head. You might also be very good at constructing logical arguments whilst also being able to expose illogical arguments as well. Because the thing is that Gemini is a sign associated with logic and with reason, and also it's associated with the left side of the brain. Therefore, Gemini, you can be a highly logical minded person when it comes to estimating and approximating measurements such as length, distance, quantity and weight. You might be very good at being able to identify what the correct answer is. And also when it comes to maths, well, the results don't lie. And so you might actually like that. You might like the fact that the results don't lie. However, you might also be very good at extracting conclusions from the research that you're performing and from the data that you're collecting as well. And so you might be very good, Gemini, at finding patterns, different connections within the very data that you are collecting. So for example, if you are doing statistics, Gemini, let's say for example you were to take 10 Aries children out of 1,000 children, then you were to take 10 Taurus children out of 1,000 children, then that is going to give you 20 children in total. But then from those children, you're wanting to identify how many of them have Libra moons. So you may find out that 2 Aries have Libra moons and then 3 Taurus people have Libra moons, resulting in 5 children in total having Libra moons, meaning that 25% of those children have Libra moons. So yeah, these types of things, Gemini, you might be good at performing. You may be really good at being able to come up with different statistics and creating different formulas in order to arrive to certain conclusions. Now, the thing about Mars as well, Gemini, is that it involves the skill of being able to manipulate precise and intricate ideas. So this is something that you might be very good at. Or it could be that Mars is that subject that can sharpen these very skills for you, Gemini. Plus, Gemini, you may also perform very well when it comes to quantitative reasoning here, okay? So this is whenever you're able to understand Mars facts, so being able to understand the facts and the concept that come with Mars, and then apply them to your real world scenarios. And this in itself can really help you when it comes to problem solving. So for example, maybe there is a particular problem that you're facing within everyday life, Gemini, but then you might be able to reword that problem into your own words in order to understand what actually is going on. So by you understanding the problem, then you can figure out how to solve the problem. So you can come up with a way to solve that problem by translating the problem in mathematical terms or into a way that suits you best. Some tips though, when it comes to learning here, Gemini, well, you have the tendency of being rather scattered. So whenever you are going to do maths, try to use a ruler and a pencil just to keep everything neat and organized and laid out. Plus, you also have the tendency of becoming easily bored or distracted. So yes, maths is one of those subjects that can be very, very boring for a lot of us, and you may be this type of Gemini and you're watching this and you're thinking, why are you choosing maths? Like, it's so boring, it's so bland, it's so dry. Well, the thing about it is that, of course, in school, maths is compulsory, right? So maybe trying things to keep it more amusing and fun for yourself. So trying to apply maths to your everyday life in a way that's more enjoyable here. So you could use your friends as guinea pigs, for example, or you could buy stationery that consists of variety. Or you can do something interactive, or you can do anything that just really keeps you mentally stimulated. So the second subject that I chose for you, Gemini, is English, but also in brackets other languages, because you may have a curiosity towards learning new languages. So yeah, when it comes to learning English, Gemini, you might perform very well because, for example, spelling might be something that comes naturally to you. You might actually be someone who was the first to talk out of your peers or your classmates. Or you might just enjoy learning new words to really add towards your vocabulary. You also might be very good at being able to pick up new words, retain new information. But going back to this whole understanding words, well, you don't just want to learn the word, you want to understand what that word means. And so by you understanding what that word means, then you're going to basically remember it more than likely, and then you're also going to be able to use it in conversation. The thing about Gemini is that Gemini is associated with communication in astrology. It rules over that area of life, and so for the Gemini student, they may be those types of students who are just more curious towards learning new words because they're highly curious about people and places and things and discovery, and they just want to communicate, they just want to talk. So whenever you do go to communicate or speak, well, you can be great at articulating yourself, and this can actually result in you, Gemini, possessing a very wide vocabulary, which is very rich and varied. You also might possess a fair understanding of grammar here as well, and you might actually enjoy reading out loud in class because this involves you using your voice. Plus, you might be the types of students who are able to adapt very well towards the teacher's teaching styles, their methods, but then you can also adapt very well towards your own language and towards your own style. So you may develop a certain way of speaking or communicating, but then you may change that. You may adapt even your own style of communication based upon how somebody else is communicating with you as well. So this can make you highly versatile, it can make you highly flexible and highly changeable, and by doing so, you're able to actually delve into different styles of communication, into different styles of learning. Now, when it does come to you learning other languages, well, you might be really eager and curious towards learning different languages. You can also be fast learners and you may pick up quite quickly on new languages as well, and you may be very good at forming connections between your own native tongue and towards the new language that you're learning. There can just be this innate ability for you, Gemini, to master languages, especially if you are that type of Gemini who has lived in a different country before, where you move to a different country and then you pick up very, very quickly that new language. But that makes sense, because by moving to that certain country, yes, that's probably going to be the best way to learn a new language, is by going there and being in the heart of it. But still, you are more likely going to be receptive towards other accents, towards other languages, and so you may even be that type of Gemini who just, you can be this great impersonator, or you may just do these weird accents or speak in different accents from time to time. You might actually be that type of Gemini who just makes up your own words. You just sort of morph a certain word from a certain language into a different language, and then you make up your own word from the two languages. And tips though, when it comes to your learning style, well, Gemini, you have the tendency of being fickle and a bit too detached sometimes. So during English class, you may lack empathy towards other students who are learning. So for example, maybe Ben or Sally is reading a piece from a book, but yet they are reading too slow, they're too boring for your liking, Gemini, and so you may switch off, you may detach, or you may show little sympathy towards that person and just sort of think, when's it my go to talk, or will they just shut up already, or will they just get to the point already. So there can be that tendency of you becoming just overly fickle, overly lacking in empathy towards wanting to listen to other people. Naturally, this can also be applied to the group scenario or situation where maybe you are working in a group, but then you become quite unsympathetic towards other students within that group. Then again, there can also be some of you Gemini who are just not very engaging at all, where you just don't want to listen at all. Maybe you're just having one of your bad days, or you're having one of those days where you just can't be bothered with work or school or learning at all. You can also maybe get into these tendencies of being highly disruptive in class, or you can internalize what you're thinking, which can actually lead towards you becoming quite jittery and a bit cranky. So you're sort of going internally and you're causing a lot of stress upon your nervous system. These qualities, yes, they may come with the Mercury retrograde, may come with the Mercury intercepted in that regard. So if this is the case, it might be a good idea, Gemini, to have some sort of intellectual outlet. So maybe you could go to after school classes, maybe you could speak with a friend, maybe you could have a one-on-one session, or maybe you could just work with other students that you feel like you can communicate really well with, or that you feel really comfortable with. Plus, it might also be a good idea, Gemini, for you to learn how to overcome these intellectual detachments, because they can get in the way of your studies, especially if you're working on a school project with others. So just try to keep yourself alert in that way, and try to catch yourself on whenever you maybe are detaching, or whenever your mind is just going elsewhere. Some ways to actually help with this: So to remain focused, to remain concentrated, well, I would recommend exercise. So making sure that you move your physical body, because it's going to get you so much, well, it's going to get you out of your head. Also, a distraction to-do list might be good. So those times whenever you are sitting with other people and you have an idea, or there's some other thing that comes into your mind that, oh, you're thinking about, just write that down. Write it down, get it out of your head onto paper so you don't need to think about it anymore. You can go to it at a later stage. Also, practicing mindfulness is a really good idea, where you observe your behaviors, so you can observe yourself whenever you are maybe going to detach. The last subject I want to choose for you, Gemini, is art and design. So when it comes to learning about art and design, well, you might be really good in this subject, because for one, art involves creativity, and you are a sign that possesses a whole lot of creative ability, and you can be highly skilled in your creativity, because it's creativity that gets you thinking in new ways. It gets you forming connections. It gets you exploring and embracing and discovering and tackling unseen hurdles, where you're able to come up with many different styles and themes. When you actually go to analyze or assess a certain piece of art, you can formulate pretty quickly different equations in your own mind as to how you're going to approach that piece of art. Meaning that it's the subject of art that can help enhance your ability to approach the task in a different variety of ways, from a different variety of perspectives. Plus, your artistic style and your flair might change pretty frequently as well. So one minute you may really enjoy pop art, but then the next minute you really enjoy art deco. So yeah, art and design is just one of those subjects, Gemini, that you can really thrive at due to just how open and freeing it is, due to the variety, due to the changeability and the flexibility. But at the same time, it's through art and design that you can also really discover your own deeper meaning. So when you're creating something new and fresh, you created that, but the meaning behind that may be very deep and very introspective, and it may show a lot of your own character. It can just be a great way for you, Gemini, to extract whatever is going on in your head and then placing it onto paper or placing it onto a blank canvas. And it's a way for you to use your own voice as well through your own style of art. And it's also a way for you to learn about new styles and new techniques to use as well. Furthermore, I can also see how art and design can help you discipline yourself as well through that continuous practice over time. You might even be that type of Gemini who enjoys learning about other artists who have come before you in that regard. You may be able to get into the mind of how other artists have done it, and by you getting into their own mindset, you can be walked through that process of how they did it, and by doing so you can reflect on that and assess maybe, how can I go into this myself? Some tips though when it comes to art and design, well, I would recommend trying not to replicate other artists too much, because there is a tendency here, Gemini, of you juggling too many things at once or too many ideas at once. So for example, when it comes to you learning about other artists who have done it before you, you may pick up on a certain way that an artist has done it, but then you'll pick up on a way that another artist has done it, but then you may just be continuously pulling from all of these different artists, and then it can become quite scattered. The ideas may just be really jumbled up in your mind, and then you may find it difficult to focus on what's actually your own authentic expression, or how you know, what's your actual original idea in that way. So, you know, trying not to spread yourself out too thin. You just might be that type of student that jumps on the bandwagon, so you could go from one style or trend, but then before you know it, you're on to another style or trend. It's good to hold yourself accountable when it comes to the work that you're producing, where you can essentially learn from your mistakes and learn from what styles don't work for you, but then also learning to finish a piece of work here as well. So if you're creating a certain piece of art, learning to just stick with that piece of art and take responsibility for that art, or just for your work in general. Yes, you are a sign that is highly changeable and you may love the change, but at the same time, if it is that you're having to meet a certain deadline for school or class, then yeah, it's good to keep yourself more focused and hone in on that specific piece that you're working at that given moment. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so those are the 3 subjects that I wanted to really elaborate on in connection with the Gemini student, whilst also really providing some learning tips. Now, again, if you are not at school anymore, maybe you still could learn something from this, because I did elaborate on certain difficulties or challenges that the Gemini energy may deal with on a regular basis, but then also just kind of showing you the learning style overall. If you do happen to have Mercury in Gemini, or if you have Gemini ruling the 3rd house, please let me know what you thought of the video. I would really like to get an insight into really how these signs do manifest in real life, and my idea with this series is very new. I'm really just going on by my own sort of studies, my own analysis, but to get sort of confirmation or to get an insight into what or how these placements actually play out, that would be really, really helpful. So yeah, with all that being said then, thank you so much for watching, thank you for subscribing, and if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then go right ahead and click the subscribe button, and I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!